Across the UK, on DAB digital radio, on the free Times Radio app, and via your smart speaker. Daryl Morris on Times Radio.
Elsewhere tonight, a Labour MP has threatened to trigger a by-election unless the government drops plans to restrict jury trials to the most serious crimes. In an interview with the Sunday Times, Karl Turner said that he was ashamed of the Prime Minister and the Justice Secretary David Lammy and called on them to stop the ludicrous proposals. He spoke to Chloe Tilley on Times Radio Breakfast today as well.
We are absolutely seething with the government, with the Prime Minister and with David Lammy. And I've said to the Prime Minister, I want to see him face to face on this single issue, and I expect him to instruct Lammy to stop and think again.
So you think it'll be stopped? It'll be stopped by Labour MPs?
People are cheesed off. It's not in the manifesto. If this was the Tory government doing this, Labour MPs would be going absolutely stark raving mad, including Keir Starmer and including David Lammy.
Labour MP Karl Turner, he's on the front page of the Sunday Times tomorrow, I can tell you, exclusively. Save juries or face by-election is the headline. Let's speak to Andrew Eborn, who's a barrister, a broadcaster, and president of Octopus TV. Andrew, thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure to join you, as always.
Look, this story's rumbled. We've kind of debated, haven't we, Andrew, back and forth the idea of this. We'll come to the politics in a minute. In terms of the legal profession, where are they sort of landing at the moment? They've had some time to think this through now, haven't they, Andrew?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it is interesting because we need to sort of put this in perspective. It goes all the way back to Magna Carta, is your fundamental right to be tried by your peers.
Yeah.
And you look at that sort of side. But you have to couple with that as well, because that's Article 29 of Magna Carta. But Article 30 talks about your right to get a speedy trial. And the problem is there's these massive backlogs where they're predicting it could be up to 30,000, the backlog on that sort of basis. So they've got to find ways to try and speed it up. So what they're looking at is basically what are called triable either way cases, which can either be decided in a magistrate court or you can elect to get it going to the Crown Court, i.e. where they're not so serious, under 3 years maximum penalty. And they're trying to look at those sort of efficiencies. And I always say, look, trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. And trust in the legal profession, in politics and in the media is perhaps at an all-time low. So we need to make sure that something is done to speed up justice. Now, the lawyers themselves, many lawyers are saying, look, this is a fundamental human right for these trials by jury, and that's where they're looking at this sort of side. I do say, however, that if we can get those efficiencies, then that's got to be a fair and equitable way to do it. The other thing, as you probably know, I speak as a futurist around the world, and I'm determined to put the AI into Britain. And what legal systems around the world are doing is embracing AI to basically introduce these efficiencies, which means that you can get that backlog dealt with in an appropriate way.
OK, what do you think of Karl Turner then when he says this is a serious enough issue for him that he could trigger a by-election?
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's absolutely his fundamental right to say exactly that. And most lawyers will turn around, including the Bar Council, and say, this is our fundamental right. How dare the politicians interfere with it? So he's right to turn around from a political point of view to call it out. It is interesting that, we had previously 7 Labour MPs had their whip removed over, you might remember, the two-child rule. And that was subsequently, they were invited back a little bit later on. So he is going to vote against it. He may trigger this by-election, and it's important that this fundamental right is debated properly. But I do say we need to put it into perspective rather than just grabbing those headlines. It's not abolishing jury trial by absolutely. It is trying to look at those sort of efficiencies. And the other point as well is that sometimes when you have these huge delays, massive delays, it does also prejudice the evidence because witnesses tend to forget and so on and so forth. And the other thing we need to look at is not just about these offences which can be triable either way, as I say, but very complicated cases. So fraud cases, for example, are notoriously complicated. They drag on for an eternity. And juries which are confused, as they tend to be in these very complicated cases, they tend to acquit. So you talk about justice being done, but not just done, but seen to be done. in those sort of cases, justice may not, in fact, be served.
Okay, interesting. Andrew, thank you for your time. Nice to talk to you. Andrew Eborn, who is a barrister and a broadcaster. You can read more on that story. Caroline Wheeler has it. She's been speaking to Karl Turner, as we did here on Times Radio as well. It's in your copy of the Sunday Times this weekend. You can also listen back to Karl's interview on Times Radio Breakfast this morning on the Times Radio app.
Download the free Times Radio app and listen to us wherever you are.
Daryl Morris on Times Radio.